frustrated. I'm getting frustrated.
What's up guys, welcome to Superwise, I'm John, and last night I finally saw Joker Folie Deux. Context is important, so let's briefly talk about Joker 2019. The first Joker was fantastic. When that initial camera test dropped, I was hooked and it instantly became my most anticipated movie of 2019. The movie itself then released and did not disappoint. I made it a point to rewatch it just a few hours before going to see Folie Deux. That film is pretty much a masterpiece to me. It's an incredible character study and has insightful and compelling commentary on society and classism. It has something to say with Joaquin Phoenix's brilliant performance at the forefront. It's arguably the best comic book movie performance ever. When the movie ended, I was at ease and totally okay with us not getting a sequel. But part of me saw the potential for the story to continue, similar to one of my favorite films ever made, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I was open to the idea. The trailers for Folie Deux were literal masterpieces, and I was fully convinced the sequel would deliver and at least be as great as the first one. I haven't been this disappointed and saddened by a film in a long time. I walked out so defeated and so disgusted. Let's talk about positives and get that out of the way. Todd Phillips directs the hell out of this movie and it's so visually striking and beautiful. The performances were all great, no surprise there. Joaquin continues to be phenomenal and Lady Gaga fit the role of Harley quite well. The musical aspects and set pieces were an absolute treat as someone who loves musicals. They're fun, they're creative, I was smiling ear to ear and always thought that the musical aspect from the perspective of the delusion and fantasy was genius. It worked. I enjoyed about half of this movie and was giving it time to show me where it was headed. I was really liking it until I wasn't. I was genuinely shocked it took the decline it did. I can't say I like this movie. Along the way, it slowly peters out to the point where the film ceases to be good. The trial starts off as a solid idea but ends up as contributing to the problem, to the movie dragging on and becoming more of a gimmick that recaps the superior first film. I didn't outright hate the movie and there are things I absolutely loved, but the people that said Joker didn't need a sequel were right. The people that said it was a cash grab and unnecessary were right. The film had really amazing ideas and potential, but this sequel shouldn't have even been made. It had no real reason for existing. Like I said, the first one had something to say while this follow-up struggles to say anything worth making a sequel for. They've essentially ruined the first movie and what it set up. Todd Phillips in recent interviews has made it clear that this film needed to be very bold and distinct, but he was so obsessed with subversion and making the anti-sequel, it hurt the movie. It was not paced well and it was very choppy, which resulted in the overall story not excelling or accomplishing the highs of the first movie. They try to dive further into the character and psychosis of Arthur, but because the execution is so weak and flimsy, it doesn't hit the way it needed to. They backtrack Arthur's actions, pretty much character regression, having him regret killing all those people, stripping any Joker that's left. It almost feels like Todd Phillips is apologizing for making the good points he made in the first one. In a better movie, this deconstruction would work, but because the execution is poor, it doesn't ultimately. I love seeing Arthur bond with Harley and evolve, but another issue with the movie is Harley as a character. Joker 2019 delivered an in-depth character study of Arthur, and I thought we would get that with Harley. Unfortunately, we get a couple lines of exposition that are supposed to be character motivation and reasoning, but it's not effective. She's like half of a character. The relationship and breakup ultimately didn't work because she wasn't fleshed out enough. They promise and tease things like Harley getting pregnant, but they don't deliver on exploring these ideas. How does Arthur feel about being a father after he was abused by his mother? That's a very interesting and compelling conversation if we had it, but they didn't care enough to address it. So I was super disappointed by that, and the title itself of Folie Deux, which means delusion for two, doesn't even really make sense or is relevant by the end of the movie. But then we get to the most controversial part of Folie Deux, and that is the ending. I heard it was beyond awful and I was excited to see how bad it could have possibly been. Long story short, I wanted erased from my brain. I wasn't completely opposed to the idea of Joaquin serving as a prototype Joker that ends up not actually being the Joker that Batman will eventually come to fight, but it was a fan theory first that Todd decided to give into, believing it was good subversion. It's not. Instead of having it be a cheap, lazy, telegraphed reveal, why not explore this new potential Joker? His character and him being influenced by Arthur. But we don't get that. It's here for shock value and nothing more. It's underwhelming that I didn't feel satisfied with Arthur's arc, and this serving as his endgame left me incredibly underwhelmed. There were multiple different ways to take this, but having the implication that this is a Heath Ledger-like Joker that audience are encouraged to wow at is cheap. The whole carving of the face and Glasgow smile was just it was a true eye roller. I didn't want to see it. I felt it was just so cheap and lazy. This dude goes from quietly admiring Arthur to being pushed to the edge so fast. It's not well executed at all. It's a cop-out. The Joker who interacted with Thomas and Bruce Wayne, the Joker that made such a huge impact on society, doesn't end up being the quote-unquote real Joker. We instead get a knockoff we have no attachment to running around in this universe. The way to salvage this movie is literally by ripping off or taking heavy inspiration from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, akin to Joker 1 using King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. If Todd Folie are mostly set in Arkham, have Arthur be introspective in this confined space, actually flesh out the supporting characters, this ending probably would have gone down better. Give us this new Joker, let us be invested in him, and then maybe you can kill off Arthur. Have it be integral to the storytelling and not some cheap gotcha moment at the end of the movie. The ending does hurt the overall film quite a lot, no doubt. So in conclusion, Joker Folie Deux was a massive disappointment, and while I genuinely love the musical aspect, I'd rather this movie to have not been made at all. A part of me wants to rewatch it and see if anything changes, but the other part of me just wants to never watch this thing again. WB clearly loved making that billion, and I'm sure they were talking Todd's ear off to squeeze out another, and that's how I'll always remember this sequel. It had potential and glimmers of promise, but ultimately was an unsuccessful endeavor. Instead of remembering Joaquin's Joker as an insane high for DC, we have this second movie that sours the entire damn thing. I really do respect Todd Phillips for setting out to make something bold and unique, but when it hurts what you've brilliantly crafted and what we were invested in, I can't support or defend that. So sad it's gotta end like this, but those are my thoughts on Joker Folie Deux. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Was it disappointing for you, or did it actually work? That'll be all for me. Remember my catchphrase, guys. Stay super wise.